let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a seriously mind-bending phenomenon in computer science, convergent evolution. We are going to look at how two totally different frontiers, evolutionary artificial intelligence on one hand and event-driven data storage on the other, somehow arrived at the exact same elegant mathematical concept to generate boundless, infinite complexity.
To connect these seemingly unrelated worlds, here is our roadmap. 1. The power of open-endedness. 2. Growing complex neural networks. 3. Spawning dynamic tree databases. 4. Shared DNA, nodes and links. And 5. The future of infinite growth. Section 1. The power of open-endedness. So let's start with biology. You really have to wonder why nature can endlessly create such complex life from incredibly simple rules, while our computer algorithms, well, they usually just halt after solving one static problem. AI researcher Ken Stanley actually challenges us to rethink this completely. He argues that if we want true artificial intelligence, we need to harness true open-endedness. We need a divergent process that literally never turns off, just constantly building on itself. Because think about it. Nature is the only example we have of human-level intelligence, and it was born from a completely open-ended, non-halting evolutionary process.
What's really fascinating here is how Stanley's work looks straight at biological development, embryogeny, for the answer. Think about a developing embryo. A cell knows exactly what it's supposed to become based on its coordinates, right? It uses chemical gradients to figure out, am I on the left, the right, the head? Stanley realized that if we abstract this concept using coordinate frames that act like these chemical gradients, we can actually start building artificial brains that organically grow their own complex architectures.
Section 2. Growing complex neural networks.
The really crucial takeaway here is that AI researchers don't actually need to simulate the agonizingly slow physical growth of a biological organism. Instead, they use what's called a compositional pattern-producing network, or CPPN. It's basically computational DNA. It uses simple math functions, stuff like symmetry and repetition, to produce these highly complex, beautifully organized structural patterns, acting as a sort of connected graph abstraction of development. And they take this whole concept a step further with a system known as ES-hyperNet. Imagine you're trying to connect nodes situated in a 2D space to build a brain. A connection between them actually requires 4 dimensions, the x and y coordinates of the source and the x and y coordinates of the target. By mapping these dimensions into a 4D hypercube, ES-hyperNet uses that computational DNA to just paint connectivity rules across a massive grid of nodes. It's a wildly elegant approach that lets massive neural networks organically emerge with absolutely no human hard coding required.
Stanley's team pushed this boundless creation even further with something called the POET algorithm. Now, usually AI needs us to hand-feed it training data, but POET, it's an infinite loop. It co-evolves both the problems and the solutions at the exact same time. So as it generates novel, increasingly difficult environments on one side, it's simultaneously optimizing the AI agents to solve them on the other. It's literally forcing the neural network to continually grow in complexity just to survive these newly spawned challenges. It's like an endless evolutionary arms race.
Section 3. Spawning dynamic tree databases. Okay, let's totally shift gears here, we're moving from AI over to data storage, looking at the patented work of Kyle McLean-Smith to see this exact same open-ended growth applied to databases. Now, we usually think of databases as these static, rigid tables, right? But Smith envisions something completely different, Seed Tree DB. This is an event-driven, hierarchically organized tree database built entirely out of active script files. Think JavaScript or JSON. Instead of just sitting there passively holding data, these script-based nodes contain active executable functions right alongside the data itself. And the way this builds on itself is just brilliant in its simplicity. It operates on a remarkably straightforward rule rewriting process. Step 1, a parent node receives an event, say a new piece of info. Step 2, that parent uses its built-in script to instantly instantiate a brand new child node to hold the data. Step 3, a kernel function adds metadata to form a permanent structural link between them. That's literally it.
Because of this simple hierarchical branching rule, whenever an event happens, a node spawns a child and links to it. This single rule lets the database branch out endlessly. It's exactly like those artificial embryos we just looked at. This data structure physically grows and expands in response to its environment, only limited by the hardware it happens to be running on.
So why does this matter?
Well, for complex applications, like tracking massive financial logs or music copyrights, it's all about transparency. Because the functions that execute the commands live inside the exact same nodes as the data, the entire sprawling system stays beautifully transparent. As this tree grows infinitely larger, every single event leaves a permanent, perfectly self-explanatory audit trail right there in the structural links.
Section 4, Shared DNA, Nodes, and Links.
Now it's time to bring these two branches together, and when you look at them side by side, it is absolutely wild. On one hand, you have AI pattern generation mapping out the abstract mathematical gradients of an artificial brain. On the other, you have the hierarchical event logs of an ever-expanding script database. They are built for totally different industries, sure, but structurally, the underlying math and the branching architectures look practically identical. And this is exactly what we mean when we talk about convergent evolution in computer science. Just like birds and bats both evolved wings to solve the problem of flight, these two distinct fields evolved the exact same mechanism to solve the problem of infinite scale. Whether it's mathematical gradients dictating a neural connection or an incoming data event triggering a new child node, the universal shared mechanism is simply a parent node spawning a link to a child.
What you should really take away from all this is that relying on basic recursive mechanics unlocks limitless complexity. Both of these systems use simple algorithmic rule rewriting. Both rely on hierarchical node linking. Both result in boundless, dynamic architecture generation. But most importantly, both embrace open-endedness. They grow organically. There's no strict final blueprint telling them exactly where to stop.
Section 5, the future of infinite growth. As we wrap up this explainer, let's think about why embracing these dynamic, open-ended systems is so vital for the future. For decades, we've built software that is fundamentally designed to halt. We write static programs to solve static problems. But as Ken Stanley points out, when we build open-ended systems that write their own expanding scripts and neural networks, there are no final solutions. The system is just going to keep going, and that opens the door to continuous, unbounded discovery that actually mirrors the creativity of nature itself. Which leaves us with a pretty profound thought to end on today. If the simple rules of embryology, a cell looking at a gradient, spawning a connection, and linking to its neighbor, if those simple rules built the human mind over billions of years, what magnificent, incomprehensible complexities are these exact same algorithms eventually going to build inside our machines? Keep wondering, and as always, keep looking for those connections.